Ready to dive into a topic that pushes the boundaries of typical productivity advice? Because we're about to unpack something kind of surprising: the unexpected link between, get this, fear and getting things done.
Yeah, I'll bite. Fear and productivity, those two don't usually go hand in hand, do they?
Not usually, no. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're drawing insights from a really thought-provoking Blossom Minds video, that YouTube channel, always full of wisdom. And it turns out fear might not be the productivity killer we think it is.
All right, now you've piqued my curiosity. So what's the Blossom Minds take on this unusual pairing?
Well, they really flip the script on how we usually approach productivity. It's easy to get caught up in all the external tools and hacks, the apps, the to-do lists.
Oh, absolutely. Been there, tried that. Sometimes they work, sometimes not so much.
Right. But this Blossom Minds piece, it goes deeper. All about the internal game, those subtle shifts in mindset and behavior that can unlock serious potential.
And those internal shifts often get overlooked, don't they? We get so focused on checking things off the list that we forget about the engine driving the whole operation, which in this case is us.
Exactly. And that's where fear comes in. The video's host, Mr. Krishna, makes this really intriguing point. He says a little bit of fear, like the right amount of spice in a recipe, can actually enhance productivity.
No, that's counterintuitive. Isn't fear like public enemy number one when it comes to getting things done?
We're conditioned to think so, right? But Mr. Krishna brings up a crucial point. Fear is hardwired into us. It's that primal survival instinct, the whole fight or flight response, keeping us safe from danger. The problem is when that response gets stuck in overdrive.
So it's not about eliminating fear completely. It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between healthy caution and, well, letting fear paralyze us.
Precisely. Like, we need a little fear to remind us to look both ways before crossing the street, but a whole truckload of fear. That'll just keep us frozen on the sidewalk. And Mr. Krishna gives some really relatable examples of how this fear overload can totally backfire when it comes to actually getting things done.
Well, I'd love to hear some of those examples. What kind of productivity pitfalls can we fall into when fear takes the reins?
Well, think about procrastination, a classic productivity killer, right?
Tell me about it.
Often it's not about laziness, but about the fear of failure looming so large that we just avoid starting at all, or those brilliant ideas we have that never quite see the light of day.
Because we're terrified of judgment or rejection, or worse, that our ideas aren't even good enough to begin with. Oof, yeah, I've been there.
Right. That's fear holding us back from reaching our full potential. And there are even more subtle ways fear can sabotage our productivity, but we'll get into those a bit later. It's like we build these mental prisons, right? And the warden is fear.
It's a powerful analogy. But the good news is, Mr. Krishna, he doesn't just leave us trapped in those prisons. He offers some really practical strategies, ways to navigate these fear roadblocks.
Okay, so how do we break free? Give us the tools to dismantle those fear walls.
He calls it building mental resilience. Think of it like this inner toolkit, right? Equipped to handle whatever fear throws our way. And the first tool he unpacks is what is called emotionalization.
Emotionalization. Okay, now that sounds a little intimidating. Like, am I supposed to just have a meltdown every time I feel a twinge of fear?
Right. It sounds intense, but it's actually the opposite. Emotionalization is about creating a safe space to process those fears instead of letting them just, bounce around in your head, gaining more power.
So less about unleashing a tidal wave of emotion, more about gently unpacking it. Got it.
Exactly. Mr. Krishna suggests journaling.
It's amazing how getting those fears out of your head and onto paper can really, diminish their power.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Just the act of writing it down, it's like you're taking away some of its control over you.
Right. And even just saying those anxieties out loud, even if it's just to yourself, it helps.
It's like you're validating those feelings, but you're not letting them run the show. And what I find fascinating is how journaling encourages deeper self-reflection. You start to explore the why behind your fears.
Uncovering the root of those anxieties, huh? That's got to be insightful, maybe even a little empowering.
Absolutely. But journaling is just one tool in the kit. The second tool Mr. Krishna highlights is all about perspective.
Okay, so how do we shift our perspective when fear has us convinced the sky is falling?
It's about moving away from dwelling on those what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, and instead focusing on what we can control. Our preparation, our actions.
So less about predicting a future we have no control over, more about focusing on navigating whatever comes our way.
Exactly. Mr. Krishna puts it beautifully in the video. He says, tomorrow is a very much blank page yet to come, isn't it?
I like that. Such a simple reminder that we often create these fear-filled narratives in our heads, but reality, it rarely plays out the way we expect.
Right. And this is where Mr. Krishna brings in something you might not expect. He draws a parallel to Stoic philosophy.
Stoicism. Okay, that's a new one. Not usually what comes to mind when we talk about productivity.
No, right. But it makes sense when you think about it. Stoicism, it's about recognizing that while we can't control every external circumstance, we can control our reactions, our responses.
So it's about facing our fears head on, but with this sense of grounded confidence, right? Knowing we have the strength to handle whatever comes our way.
Exactly. Just like any skill, mental resilience requires practice. And the more we use these tools, emotionalization, perspective shifting, embracing that Stoic mindset,
The more resilient we become. It's like we're trading in that old fight or flight manual for a new one titled Face and Flow. But you know what really struck me, and this is where it gets really interesting, Mr. Krishna doesn't stop at personal productivity. He takes these principles of mental resilience and, this is key, he connects them to building trust and respect, especially in teams.
and that's where this framework really shines. Because it's not just about individual achievement, it's about creating a culture of resilience. Imagine a leader who embodies these principles, someone who acknowledges their own vulnerabilities, not afraid to say, hey, I'm feeling a bit anxious about this too, and encourages open communication, especially about challenges.
Instead of sweeping those fears under the rug, pretending they don't exist.
Exactly. And they prioritize preparation over panic.
Yeah.
That kind of leader, they create an environment where everyone feels safe.
Yeah.
Safe to take risks, to be creative, because they know they won't be punished for making a mistake.
It's about fostering what they call psychological safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When people feel truly seen, heard, understood, that's when the magic really happens.
Because fear is no longer this thing that holds us back.
It becomes this energy source, a catalyst for innovation, for growth. It's like that old saying, the greatest risk is not taking one.
In this whole deep dive, it's been a brilliant reminder. Fear isn't the enemy. It's how we choose to dance with it.
To use it as fuel.
So to everyone listening, here's a little challenge from Mr. Krishna in this. What's one fear that's been holding you back? Maybe in a small way, or maybe it's a big one. How can you apply emotionalization, perspective shifting, that dash of Stoic wisdom to change your relationship with that fear, starting today?
And one last thought before we go, something to ponder. If fear, something we usually see as negative, can become this catalyst for growth, what other seemingly negative emotions, anger, sadness, boredom even, might have untapped potential? What else can we learn to leverage? Something to chew on as you continue your own deep dive into the fascinating world of, well, you.
We'll leave you with that. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.